Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs. And before we get started, I have one question that I need you to answer down below in the comment section. This is actually going to be the pinned comment on the video, so I'm going to pin it at the very top. Go ahead and reply to it. Let me know. Are you upset the Texans didn't go after Chip Kelly? Because all indications say the Texans really didn't go after the former Ohio State offensive coordinator that hard. It seems like they weren't that interested. It was, a mild level of interest, I would say, from the Houston Texans. Let me know down in the comments. Are you upset they didn't go harder after Chip Kelly? Give me a yes, give me a no, give me your reasoning down below in the comment section. Coming up on today's show, the real reason why Chip Kelly chose the Las Vegas Raiders over the Houston Texans, because I know a lot of people were pretty surprised in this. I mean, Raider fans, Raider beat reporters were maybe equally surprised because the Raiders hadn't shown a ton of interest in Chip Kelly. There hadn't been like a formal interview with Chip Kelly before they went ahead and made him the OC. And I know a lot of people were DMing me, hey, Jeremy, Chip Kelly's in Houston. He was spotted at Houston Airport. But the Texans also did not bring in Chip Kelly for an official interview. They brought in these 8 guys, Jeff Nixon, Gerard Johnson, Thad Lewis, Nick Caley, Bill Lazor, Brian Johnson, Grant Udinski, and Adam Stinovich, but no Chip Kelly. And before all this went down and during the coaching search and whenever all the Chip Kelly hype was at its peak, I was actually told by sources close to Chip Kelly that he wanted to be a head coach in the NFL again at some point in his career. He wanted to be a head coach. And that got me to thinking of, all right, so if he wants to be a head coach, does taking the Texans OC job catapult him into that for future endeavors? Like, does that help him out in the next 2 to 3 years, be a head coach? You know what does? Him taking the Raiders job. I think this is the number one reason why he chose to go to Las Vegas. And I know people are going to say, well, Jeremy, it's all about the money. Of course it's about the money, Jeremy. They're paying him $6 million, 3 times more than what he got paid at Ohio State. Yes, the money is a huge factor. But Pete Carroll, the head coach, is 73 years old. And if Chip plays his cards right, pun intended right there with the Las Vegas, if he plays his cards right, he could be the next head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think it is a natural progression of if he does well with this offense, if he keeps, the offense humming with Pete Carroll as the head coach, and at 73 years old, I think it's only going to be about a 2 or 3 year stint for Pete in Las Vegas. If he is really good on that offensive side of the football, I could see the natural progression take as whenever Carroll retires, Chip Kelly steps in and gets promoted to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And I said this in a video I did last week, maybe a week and a half ago, that Chip might want the Bucs OC job because the last 2 coordinators became head coaches. Now, the Bucs went ahead and they did not go with Chip Kelly. They went with Josh Grizzard, the pass game coordinator. Last year, they promoted him to be their next offensive coordinator, but I think it was always about getting to that next level for Chip Kelly and being the head coach of a program. And I think the Texans, it's a big boomer bust potential, because if you're Chip Kelly, if you go to the Houston Texans, your entire career is riding on C.J. Stroud and how well he plays, because the new OC must come in and develop and really take C.J. Stroud to the next level. And I think the expectations with the Texans, because they've been to the playoffs the past 2 seasons, they've won 2 playoff games, the expectations are high. If you come into Houston as the OC, anything less than a playoff win for this team and this offense really propelling forward is going to be seen as a failure. Whereas Chip Kelly taking the Raiders job, there's no expectations really. It's the offense has been bad for the past 3 years in Las Vegas. He has a ton of cap space, a ton of draft capital to make this offense whatever he wants, to mold it into whatever he wants. If you're taking the Texans job, the pieces are kind of already in place. It just needs a little bit of a facelift. You already have C.J. Stroud. You already have Nico Collins. You already have Joe Mixon. You have the base of this offense already set intact, where it's kind of like the world is your oyster with the Las Vegas Raiders, because you can do and kind of mold that offensive, depth chart however way you see fit. Now, obviously, it's not Chip Kelly. He took the Raiders offensive coordinator job. Who do you think, though, is going to be the next Texans OC? Have they interviewed him? Is it going to be one of the 8 guys they've already talked to? I don't know. Let me know your prediction down in the comments section. Coming up, I'm going to give my top 4 candidates for the Texans OC job. Now, I'm only basing this off of the people they've already interviewed because I have put out some feelers around guys like a Doug Peterson, a Darrell Bevell with the Miami Dolphins, some guys the Texans haven't brought in yet for an interview. I don't know if they go down that route. They've already interviewed 8 people so far in this OC search. I'm going to base it off of the people they've already interviewed, and I'm going to give you my top 4 guys in just a moment. But I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsors over at Game Time. They're my place to go get last-second tickets for whatever event you're trying to go to, a sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, and more. There's nothing in this world like going to a live event, and a live sporting event in that matter is even more. Sharing those events with friends and family is amazing. And hey, the big game in New Orleans is this week. I know the prices are very expensive, but Game Time is going to help you find the best deals if you are trying to go to the biggest game of the year. No matter if you're trying to sit at the 50-yard line or if you're trying to get nosebleed seats, Game Time has you covered. They've got deals right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute deals. They got you covered, and hey, with everything going on in Dallas and with Luka Doncic, if you're trying to see the best team in Texas in terms of basketball-wise, I think you're talking about the Houston Rockets, and they've got deals on all the Rockets games coming up. I mean, on February 9th, the Nets are coming to town. And then we have February 12th, the Suns will be coming to the Toyota Center. So if you want to see any of those deals, one, make sure you use Game Time. And then also use the Game Time Picks feature. It'll show you the very best deals that they have on the app for any Rockets game or any event that you're trying to go to in general. So go check them out today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Now, here are going to be my top candidates for the Houston Texans. I have 4, and honestly, the first 3 aren't ranked in any particular order. I only have my top option, and then the next 3 guys, I would say, are all somewhat even. First, let's talk about Jerrod Johnson, Texans quarterback coach this past season. He is the only internal guy that I see the Texans promoting to be the offensive coordinator. He's only had 5 seasons of coaching experience in the NFL. He's a former quarterback in the NFL, CFL, and UFL, and a lot of people actually credit Stroud's early success to Jerrod Johnson. He could be an intriguing name for the Houston Texans if they really want to. If you want to do a Stroud-centric hire, if you're just hiring somebody to make C.J. Stroud more comfortable, it's going to be Jerrod Johnson. I'm telling you that. If they hired Jerrod Johnson, just know it was C.J. Stroud who put in that offer letter, who put in that offer for him to be the OC, because that's the only way I see the Texans going with Jerrod Johnson is if C.J. Stroud steps up, goes to the front office and say, hey, I want Jerrod Johnson to be our OC. I want him to be my right-hand man and control the offense. That's who I feel most comfortable with, and that's who I think the Texans should hire. That's the only way I see them hiring Jerrod Johnson. Not that he's not a good young coach. Not that he's not very talented, because I think he is very talented, very smart, and a good young coach. But without any play-calling experience besides sometime in the preseason, it'll be hard for me to, really give my vote of confidence for Jerrod Johnson. I think he's a, really smart, young, good head coach. But like I said, if that's who it is, it's a C.J. Stroud hire, in my opinion. Next up, Adam Stenavich, the Packers OC. And this is another guy, does not have play calling experience. But this is a hire if the Texans say, what is our biggest weakness? The biggest weakness is the offensive line. And that's what Adam Stenavich would come in and immediately improve on day one. 3 years as the Packers OC and run game coordinator. He's a former offensive lineman and run game coordinator and offensive line coach. He worked with the 49ers as their assistant O-line coach and then was brought over by Matt LaFleur to be the Packers O-line coach and then eventually their offensive coordinator. Has had great success building up that Packers offensive line. I made an at-home video earlier this week after the news came out about the Adam Stinovich interview. And he's a guy who, had David Bakhtiari, got injured, has rebuilt this Packers offensive line. They've been top half of the league in every major statistic in terms of offensive line, win rate, pass rush win rate, run block win rate. They have done very well. They're a very balanced offense. And this hire would be one, if you're like, hey, the Texans, they just need to fix this O-line. This would be the one guy who I would say, if they're looking at that as the main issue, he is going to be the guy that they hire. Next up, let's look at another option. And this one, it's more of, I think that he could be a very good coordinator for the Texans. Brian Johnson, the Commanders' assistant head coach. I haven't heard any rumors of him being near the top of the totem pole in terms of hiring, but I think this could be a very good swerve for the Houston Texans because Brian Johnson brings something that, isn't familiar for this Texans team. A lot of the guys they are looking at are coming from that Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan tree, that West Coast scheme that they all use in LA and San Francisco. A lot of the guys that they've looked at are from that tree. And Brian Johnson kind of brings an outside perspective, working with the Eagles, working under Dan Mullen at Florida and, Mississippi State, those more spread offenses is a different kind of scheme than what the Texans are used to. And he's known for his work with quarterbacks. So this is another, OC hire that I think could really help CJ Stroud. He was the assistant head coach this year for the Commanders, was the Eagles OC in last season. Did not work out really, didn't really work out as the play caller there, but I think that was a little bit more of a Super Bowl hangover year for the Eagles. Had a lot of other stuff going on, but he's worked with guys like Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels this year. He was working hand in hand with that, and we saw Jaden Daniels have arguably the best rookie season for any quarterback ever in NFL history. He also worked with De'Aaron King, which we should all know, University of Houston legend, and Kyle Trask. All those guys he's worked with and had success with. So Brian Johnson, I think, would be a very intriguing option because, like I said, runs a little bit more of a spread, a different style of offense, a different offensive scheme than a lot of the guys that the Texans have interviewed because, like I said, the Texans are kind of fixated on those connections. And a lot of the connections that the Texans already have comes from the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay tree. So I think Brian Johnson, a little bit of the outlier of Texans OC candidates, could be an intriguing option. But the number one candidate for the Houston Texans and who I believe will be the next Texans offensive coordinator is Nick Caserio, the Rams QB coach and pass game coordinator. I think with them not having any interest in Chip Kelly, I think they had their eyes on Nick Caserio, and they're more focused in on bringing him in to be the next Texans OC. Now, when you look at his resume just from what's on the paper, you're like tight end coach, pass game coordinator. What is the deal with this? He's regarded as a very smart mind, has worked in New England where he had those ties with Nick Caserio, working with the Patriots, was the tight end coach for New England with Rob Gronkowski there, had great success there, came over with the LA Rams. We saw Tyler Higbee and the tight end room there have a lot of success. He's worked hand in hand with Matthew Stafford, and Sean McVay has given his vote of confidence in Nick Caserio, saying, you know what, he is a very smart young mind. And, when talking about Nick Caserio, he's saying that he could easily be an OC for most teams in the NFL and have a lot of success. And I think hiring a guy like Nick Caserio, a smart young offensive mind, that's where the Texans are kind of shifted their focus to, on looking for a smart young guy who can really revitalize this offense and bring a lot of, that Sean McVay style of offense to the Texans, because Bobby Slowick, spent a lot of time obviously under Kyle Shanahan. Sean McVay has his own wrinkles to that offense, and I think they kind of like that version a little bit more. They don't want to go full off of what the Texans scheme is at the moment, unless maybe they hire a guy like Brian Johnson. But I think they want to kind of keep that same scheme, that same continuity of what they already have, just tweak it a little bit. And the tweak a little bit would be hiring a guy just like Nick Caserio. Now, that's all I have for you on today's show, folks. Make sure you hit that sub button for Texans updates all year long. I got you covered whenever they hire a new OC. I'll obviously be breaking it down here on the channel, so make sure you hit that sub button and never miss a moment of Texans football.